Today's podcast is sponsored by Porter and Hazel Jewelry. Porter and Hazel works with you to create one-of-a-kind gifts that transform memories into keepsake mementos. Is there a favorite quote, lyric, or inside joke that means something special to you? Have them engrave your words directly into their handmade leather jewelry so you don't just give any gift, you give the perfect gift. Check out their products at porterandhazel.com. Welcome to episode 55 of the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Today, we're talking about running an online fabric shop with my guest, Lindsay Prezzano. Lindsay and her husband, Charlie, own Hawthorne Threads. Hawthorne Threads is an online fabric shop offering a vast selection of curated contemporary fabric collections, patterns, and thread for the modern sewer. Lindsay Prezzano, welcome.
Thank you so much, Abby.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. I'm super excited to hear the story of Hawthorne Threads. So let's begin by going back a little bit to how Hawthorne Threads first got started. You opened an Etsy shop in May of 2007. It was called Fabrications by Lynn. And you were making, from what I could tell, mostly kind of fabric-covered picture frames and home deck sort of things. And I wondered how that initial start led to you selling fabric.
Very surprisingly to everyone, probably myself mostly. And it was only Fabrications by Lynn, in fact, because that was the number of characters that Etsy sort of reduced it to. So Fabrications by Lindsay wouldn't quite fit. So I was basically home with my son, who was just, I guess he would have been 2 at the time, not working. My husband, Charlie, and I started a family young, just about a year after we got married, just because we had known each other for so long. We were not only high school sweethearts, but childhood sweethearts. So we were ready to get going and have kids young. So after I ended my bachelor's degree and got married, we basically decided that I would stay home with the kids until they were of school age and then go back to my master's at that time. So I was just a home mom. And Aiden, as a 2-year-old, didn't talk too much yet. So just busy myself and find something creative to keep me occupied during the day until I could talk to Charlie when I got home from work. I just started decorating his nursery with fabric-covered picture frames and, covered his name on the wall with fabric. And all my friends that had kids would come over and say that they wanted them too. So like a lot of businesses on Etsy, sort of grew out of requests from friends and family and everybody saying, you should sell these things. So I started an Etsy shop.
Okay, so you started the Etsy shop and you were making these, selling them because people liked them and you liked making them. And that was sort of probably the first taste of having a business, right? Like the first time when you have customers and customer service and shipping and, right? Did it kind of give you a little bit of a taste of like entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, much to my surprise, it was also before Etsy became flooded a little bit with lots of new people starting shops. It wasn't too well known quite yet. So I enjoyed some moderate success. And basically there was what I came to realize was a little bit of a hole in the online fabric industry because I would want to basically resell that same item several times rather than having to sort of reinvent the wheel each time and photograph it in beautiful lighting and do all that work that goes up into leading to a listing on Etsy. It's far easier to resell that a few more times and not have every item be one of a kind. And as you know from your own Etsy shop, it's very difficult to make any sort of money out of a handmade business endeavor. So to try to lower my costs on buying fabric, and that coupled with the fact that I often couldn't find the fabric available online for too long because a lot of shops would basically buy one line, sell it out, and then move on to the next. So it wasn't very reorderable. So I decided to buy bolts myself, got a manufacturing ID, and then I resold the rest of that on Etsy in a separate supply shop. And pretty quickly, people seemed to like the ones that I was picking out, and I was mixing and matching different fabric designers, which at the time was pretty different. I know that's not the case now. It was definitely more of the school of thought to just fashion. So people seemed to like the bundles that I was making, and it grew pretty quickly.
Okay, so you were making kind of custom bundles, like you would order
exactly
fabric from multiple designers at different companies as well, and then mix and match?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically, I think, out of necessity because there was a very limited budget. And then also just out of personal taste of liking to mix and match things. You know, we couldn't afford to buy a whole collection.
Right.
Or for the fear that whole thing wouldn't sell, and the fear of being left with kind of the filler, low folk prints, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so you started to see like, hey, I might have an eye for this, like for choosing and pairing the fabrics. And so your second Etsy shop was called Fabric Supplies, and was it doing better than the first one? Like, did it almost sort of outrun the first one?
Yeah, that happened pretty quickly. There was an overlap, which was, I mean, there were many crazy times in the history of our business, but that was definitely one of them. That I was still trying to keep the handmade shop open and also have the supply shop. And I very quickly, there weren't enough hours in the day, basically.
Right. Okay. So you decided to just do the fabric. And then, there must have been, though, a moment when you decided I need to sort of, if I want to do this, I got to do this for real. Got off Etsy and renamed the shop, right? Because your current shop is not called Fabric Supplies; it's called Hawthorne Threads. So what was like the pivot there when your Etsy shop shut down in October of 2009? So that's maybe 2.5 years later. Was there like a moment where you decided we gotta shift gears?
Definitely, I remember that very well, and I think still to this day that, as you said, the most pivotal moment was the decision to really take the plunge, which was when my husband quit his job. So he was a software developer, still is, but now for us. And he had been in those 2 years that you mentioned, had been helping me printing out shipping labels and answering Etsy conversations and emails and all of that. And pretty quickly, our inventory sort of surpassed the amount that you could really house at an Etsy shop. An Etsy shop is really designed for having a lower inventory. At the time, I think there were only about maybe 8 search categories, and it was quickly becoming very apparent that you can't fit hundreds of different kinds of fabrics, or maybe even we were up to thousands by then, into that few categories. It's just not very navigable. So and
you're talking, these are the categories that you as a shop owner get on sort of the left side of your Etsy shop,
yeah.
Where you can say, okay, we have these sorts of designers or these sorts of companies like Free Spirit, Moda, like that sort of thing. And you could only have 8, and 8 wasn't enough.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you want to search for different kinds of fabrications, or if you want to search by theme, if you're looking for fabric with birds on it, or by color, anything like that, anything to help the customer find what they're looking for rather than just scrolling page through page through page. Right,
and those are the features that we love as online fabric shop customers, right? When we go to, there's a lot of different online fabric shops out there now, and I know that when I go to buy fabric, I love those different options of being able to search by all these different terms, and it brings up new things. And you're right, that an Etsy shop just wasn't going to give you that.
Sure. You never want a customer to not be able to find what they're looking for and not know that you carry something that they would have been interested in.
Right.
So my husband, he had started working on our standalone site, Hawthorne Threads, while he was still working and while we were still running our Etsy shop. And it just, he would basically start working on it at, say, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And at that rate, it would have taken 10 years to write probably. So we just decided that he would leave his job and start working on the site full time. And the fallback plan was that, luckily with his degree, even with the bad economy at the time, or at least where it was headed, he was in an industry that he knew he would get a job again somewhere. So we felt scared, but, slightly confident in that regard. The scarier part was more investing into the fabric and the fear of not being able to sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you were still working out of your home, though, at that time, working out of the basement, and you live in Red Hook, New York. And so... at that
time, we lived in Albany.
Oh, okay.
And we were running the shop. Well, it kind of shifted from room to room. It started at the dining room table. It was handy enough that we had a large, tall, square dining room table that was more of a pub height table. So it was perfect for cutting because I didn't have to bend over, but also where the seams in the wood were, they were at exactly half-yard increments. So in the beginning, I didn't even use any sort of a measuring tool other than the seam in the wood, which was kind of funny.
That is funny. So it moved around and then sort of eventually landed in the basement, maybe because there was more space.
Started taking over our home, and then we semi-finished our basement. It was a 1925 colonial, not very big. It was our first home, and it was definitely a basement.
Right.
But we made it. And
okay.
And then we moved to our space that we are in now in Red Hook, New York. And we moved to Rhinebeck, just one town over, in 2011.
Okay.
So,
and when you moved there, is that when you chose to also move the business out of the house, or did you keep the business in the house for a period?
Oh, no, we were very ready to have it out of the house.
Okay.
Have our lives back. I think our kids were ready to have it out of the house. In the beginning, we could only have done this business at the exact time that it happened, because our kids were so small. We couldn't do it now because they take so much more of your time, or a different kind of time, with sports activities and friend play dates and school. They used to nap a whole lot more in the beginning.
Don't I know it? Yeah.
They would go to bed, quite a bit earlier. And we were also that much younger. So we kind of lived on coffee and little sleep for a long time. I would just cut in the basement till the early hours of the morning sometimes. But it got to the point where we either had to just stop the business or move, because we just literally didn't even have the space to hire anybody. We had a couple of younger sisters of my friends and acquaintances that would work with us, but it wouldn't be enough. The cut queue would basically, I would cut all night long or cut all weekend, and it would basically stay at the same number of orders in there. I could basically cut as fast as the orders were coming in, or not even that at some times. So it was a big relief to move into a warehouse.
So now you are in a renovated 19th century chocolate factory in Red Hook.
That's right.
And you don't have a retail space there. It's just an online shop. Is that right?
That's right. Some local quilt guilds have come in and friends to come in and sew or to come buy fabric, but we couldn't do a retail and an online shop. It's just set up entirely different. And also, since the inventory is shown online, and when a customer checks out, that immediately will deduct inventory. So if somebody's shopping around with bolts, even though the fabric is on the shelves, it might already been purchased. It's just not cut yet. So it would be very tricky to manage.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It's a pretty fast-moving place, too. So I don't think we could do what we do and get our orders out as quickly as we do.
Right.
If we're open to the public.
These are two very different kinds of businesses, and I think that that's important to understand. And how many people now work at Hawthorne Threads altogether?
We have about 30, including myself and Charlie.
Okay. So that's a pretty good staff. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And you were talking a little earlier about getting all the inventory, so buying all these bolts and the risk that is involved in funding that, because it's not inexpensive to purchase so much fabric, enough fabric to really fill out a store. And the worry there is, maybe it's not going to sell, and then what are you going to do? So I'm just curious how you funded the business in the beginning. Did you seek out a small business loan, or did you just fund it with revenue that was coming in? Did you borrow from friends and family?
No, we funded it all ourselves, and we had no money. We were busy paying back our student loans and a mortgage, but pretty much we bought a little bit at a time in the beginning. I think my first order with Free Spirit might have been 8 bolts, and then I followed up maybe a couple weeks later with a 10-bolt order from Michael Miller, and we would put it just on a credit card. We got a separate business credit card, and pretty quickly, since we would pay it back basically immediately, or as soon as we could at the time. I mean, now we still do the same practice today, and Charlie, that's the first thing he does in the morning is pay off all of our credit cards. But on a timely basis, so our limit increased pretty quickly. At the time, at first we were thinking maybe we hadn't done enough research to try to get a small business loan, or a lot of the shops, which is pretty much the common practice for quilt shops and online fabric shops, is you basically, the company will give you terms, which means you can have net 30 or net 60 and sometimes even net 90 if you're a good customer, which means basically you can buy the fabric and not have to pay them until those 30, 60, or 90 days. But we never took them up on it. I think that would be more scary for me to owe anybody money. So we never did it, and it's worked out, actually.
Yeah, that's a good, I think that's really important for people to hear, like different ways that this can work. And it doesn't necessarily have to be fancy to make it work. It can be pretty straightforward, and if you're doing it right, you can not end up in debt and still keep going.
Well, the other side of that coin, I would say, is if you are just going to pay it as you go, it does come along with a whole lot of work to make sure that you do sell through that inventory and you're not in debt to yourself or a credit card company or anybody. And we, like any new business, we had, 100-hour work weeks, I'm sure, for a few years there, and went down to 80 and 60 and something a little bit more manageable now.
Right. And that's 2 people working, what you're saying is that's 2 people basically working night and day.
Exactly.
And that's what it looked like. And that wasn't just for 6 months. That was for years.
It was.
Yeah. And that's what it took. And I want to talk a little bit about what that work consists of, because, I think one of the things that stands out to me about Hawthorne Threads as an online shop is all of the other stuff that you're doing. So one of them is, first of all, the site itself. So you have this software developer, your husband, who is working on that. And I feel like the site is easy. The site flows. The site is intuitive. It has some special features that are really nice. And I just wanted you to highlight, if you could, some of the things about this site that you're sort of especially proud of or feel like work really nicely.
Oh gosh, Charlie, he definitely did a really great job. He has quite a knack for, as you said, an intuitive site. It helps you find what you're looking for, even when you didn't realize you were looking for that, by suggesting different fabrics in a similar color of the fabric that you might be looking at, or which also leads to the color tool. He has a little grid with all these colors if you're searching for a certain shade, and you can adjust that whether you're looking for it in high dominance, like the color is found throughout the print, or low dominance, just in little bits here and there. Pretty early on, we knew that we wanted customers to be able to share their photos of anything made with the fabric that you might be looking at. So I think that comes from our Etsy days. And since we started on Etsy, we had so many small manufacturers on there that would make bags or children's clothing or quilts. And it was kind of a win-win because they get to upload their photo and they can link directly back to wherever they would like, whether it's a blog or their own Etsy shop or Facebook page. But then for our customers shopping for the fabric, they get to see the true color and the true scale. You get such a better understanding of how big, a flower really is if you see it on a handbag or a children's dress. So that's one of my favorite features. And I think we haven't checked in a long time, but just thousands and thousands of pictures have come in. And everybody at the shop just gets a kick out of seeing them all. We actually get an email every time one is added. And it's fun when one gets what's passed around to the shop. And it inspires everybody at the shop to want to make new things too.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes people who are used to a more traditional shopping experience for quilting cotton, which would be at a local quilt shop, feel like, well, online shopping, it's not going to be as good because you can't touch the fabric. I mean, that's what I hear mostly. You can't touch the fabric. Right. And, you don't have that experienced shop owner there to help guide you in your choices and ask questions and that sort of thing. And those things are completely true. Those are intangibles that are wonderful about our in-person, shops, our brick and mortar shops. But there are, I think, on the other hand, things about an online shopping experience that we also don't get at an in-person shop. And what you just mentioned are some of those really special features that enhance the shopping experience and help you in your project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that adage, I have to see and touch it and feel it is definitely among my mother's generation. She would not shop with us. She would not be our customer. But, I also understand we can't be everything to everybody. And there's certainly a place for quilt shops as well. But I think the other side of that is that we purchase from a lot of the same manufacturers over and over, and I think their reputation with their hand and their quality sort of precedes them. So I think our customers, at this point, they don't feel like they have to see and touch it and feel it for the most part. If it's an art gallery fabric, they know that it's going to have a beautiful hand and the color is going to be beautifully saturated. So it's really based on the reputation of the companies that we purchase from as well.
Yeah, and I think that that's also shifted perhaps to a degree because of social media. And so, we as consumers are familiar not only with Art Gallery and the other manufacturers, but also with the designers themselves. And so we know, as you said, it precedes them, their reputation. We already know what Alison Glass's new line looks like. And so, and we are experienced with how it feels as well. And so it's much easier in that way to then purchase online and know what you're getting, and when it comes, not be surprised.
Exactly. And I think even just shopping online in general, not just for fabric, but for anything, I think there's been a heightened comfort level with that than there was 10 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's important to point out. And I also love, so you have the site, which is wonderful, and those special features. I also love some of the other things that you're doing, because that's not all. You don't just have a site that's sitting there. You do a lot to drive traffic to that site. One of the things that strikes me most is your email marketing. So I got your emails for a long period of time, and they were...
Thank you.
Yeah, they are just... exactly what you should be doing. I mean, they're beautiful. I have forwarded them to people on multiple occasions because I'm like, this is a model for what you should be doing. I
know you have the new book that just came out about that.
Yes,
I haven't seen it yet, but thank you.
I'm a huge fan of email marketing, and I think it's something that a lot of people miss. So if you want to maybe tell us a little bit, is this something that Charlie also helped to format and create for you? And what does a typical weekly email consist of?
Well, gosh, if Charlie is the numbers guy, and, we're definitely the yin to each other's yang. I mean, that's a cliche, but we have a very segregated set of abilities that we bring to the business. And they're very different. And I think Charlie even told me about a Harvard business case study that he read in college that basically said some of the most successful businesses were husband and wife teams with very different strengths. And that's exactly what we are. We have very polar opposite strengths. So he does the analytical, web design, accounting, numbers side, and I take care of which fabric collections we purchase. And very early on, I started doing the newsletter, and then shortly thereafter, I think the blog came along, and that's been the part that I have loved the most. I've always loved pattern design, but I come from more of a family of academics, from teachers to professors to speechwriters to authors. Words have always been very important to all of us, and not only that, but I've loved kind of figuring out the inspiration that all the designers that we've carried, what inspires them to make a line. And it's always been kind of fun for me to draw all these different parallels from poetry to art and music and see those influences in collections. And it's been kind of a game for me at times. And so I've always shared it in the online newsletters, and I think it's really resonated with people because those are experiences that everybody has. Everything is just connected in some way. It's all interdisciplinary, all these forms of art. And I really enjoy it. And I'm guessing that level of enjoyment comes off in a very honest way in the newsletter. And I think people have really enjoyed receiving them.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a little contest at the bottom of each one.
Yes, every newsletter, which goes out twice a week now, because we just get so many collections that it became too many to fit into one. So we do 2 a week, and each one has a giveaway, and each one is selected from that latest pool of entries. And it's open to international customers as well. And so people have definitely enjoyed that aspect of it.
And do you find, and just one final newsletter question, because I'm a newsletter nerd, do you find that it's effective as far as driving sales? I mean, when you send it out, do you see a surge that day or that evening or the next morning for the things that were featured?
Oh, definitely. It became kind of a joke at the shop probably a couple of years ago now that all the staff members helping process the orders, they would keep having to go back to the same collection or something, and they'd be like, "Oh, that must be on the newsletter." And after a while, we realized, wait a minute, we should be going over the newsletter after we send it out with the staff right then, rather than they see it a couple days later in their own email or when they see it go up on the blog, just so they can actually set aside the collections that are in there on carts, so they don't have to continually be putting them back on and off the shelves all day long. They can just have them sitting next to the cutting table. So yes, there's an immediate influence from the newsletter to what sells.
Right. And I also think that sending it twice a week, I mean, I think there's a lot of fear in the newsletter world regarding sending and oversending. I'm going to be spamming people, it's bothering them and everything else. But what you're saying is that you're writing something in there that does resonate with people and people do enjoy getting, and and it's working. And so it's not spam if the people like being part of it and like entering the contest in each one, the twice weekly contest. So that's wonderful. And I also think that you do a great job on Instagram. And I wanted to hear a little bit about sort of your approach to Instagram. You also have a contest there that's something somewhat different. And so, do you do the Instagram, or do you have a staff member doing it? And what is the strategy there? I want to take a moment now to talk to our sponsor, Porter & Hazel.
Hi, I'm Chris Johansson, and along with my wife, Jess, we are the co-owners of Porter & Hazel Custom Leather Jewelry.
When did you first start working with leather?
2009. I had gone to college for fine arts, so I've always been kind of crafty, artisty kind of thing, and kind of stumbled into leather just as a new material, different medium, and fell in love with some of the qualities that leather has, particularly how rich and deep the colors can get and how natural everything seems to look.
And what's your most popular product at Porter & Hazel right now?
We do a lot of the wraps, the skinny wraps with custom wording on there. This way people can kind of, go with either a private joke or, something really sweet, or they can go with an inspirational reminder. We've done a lot of different types of words and quotes to people.
And these are like leather wrap bracelets. They're super cute. I love them.
Oh, thank you.
And you make wallets and leather tags for luggage. And
keychains are popular too. Also doing belts now.
And collars for cats and dogs.
Yep.
Thank you so much for sponsoring the show, Porter and Hazel. And now back to my conversation with Lindsay.
I do the Instagram mostly. Another girl, Megan, that helps me with marketing, she'll do it from time to time, or I'll ask her. I'll have an idea of something to post, and I'll ask her to take a picture, and then I might write up the post if she sends me the picture. It's been a lot of fun. We were definitely late to the game on Instagram, I would say. I think we only started it maybe a year ago, or perhaps even less. Something kind of like podcasts that I'd heard all about, but hadn't really taken the time to research and be open to and make the time for it. And we're so glad we did, because it's just another way to get connected with customers and see what everybody's making. And we've had a good time with it. It's been really fun.
Yeah, and I want to point out that you have, at the time we're talking, 16.8 thousand followers there. And I'm imagining that it's working as far as driving traffic and sales as well. I mean, it's a little harder to track with Instagram.
Sure.
Unless
on Facebook, you can get statistics because you have that direct link.
Right. And are you, I didn't actually do any research on your Facebook. Is Facebook working for you?
Definitely. You can see the metrics in there. Taking a look at Google Analytics has definitely been helpful at times, and you can set up goals within that. I'm not sure how familiar some of your listeners are to that, but you can tell where the traffic is coming from, and you can set up goals to see how many page views they do, and do they get to the checkout page, and how many of those people actually check out. So it's a really good way to check on the quality of the traffic for Facebook or blogs or anything like that. But there really isn't anything for Instagram right now, other than, as you say, your followers and the comments. But I think people just like getting that backstage view of things, and it's just another way to humanize the company and get to know people a little bit better and have them get to know us. So I think it can only be a good thing, even if there aren't any metrics for it.
Yes, absolutely. And then you also, as you mentioned earlier, you have the blog, you post the newsletter on the blog, and then you do some other kinds of blog content. And do you still feel like blogging is relevant? I mean, I know there's all these other, ways to interact with your followers and your customers online. Does the blog remain important to you?
I would love to be able to do it more, like anybody else. There's just not enough hours in the day sometimes. And yes, I think Instagram has become sort of shorthand for blogging in a way. So I think I'm seeing fewer in-depth blog posts from a lot of people, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes that might precipitate more quality than quantity. I think there's a trend that sometimes people blog because they feel like they have to blog, or they're blogging because they're supposed to, because they've taken on sponsorships, and they might not be blogging about something that they are really inspired to blog about. So in a way, that regression it could be almost a welcome thing, to take the salesiness out of things.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. I want to talk a little bit about one of your newer projects, which I think is incredibly exciting, which is that you're designing fabric and producing fabric, right at Hawthorne Threads, which is so interesting and neat and unusual, I feel like, for an online fabric shop. So you have a digital printer, and I actually visited Spoonflower a few months ago and got to see digital fabric printing in person, and it's really something else. And so it sounds like you have one of those digital printers that's been kind of tripped out to do fabric, and you're working with a designer to create the actual artwork, but you were very involved in choosing the motifs and the colors and that sort of thing. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit about like the story. How did it occur to you to decide to invest in this gigantic piece of equipment and learn? I mean, I know that there's a learning process involved. There's waste at the beginning when you're trying to figure it out. It's not always perfect from the get-go. And how is it working for you? I mean, do you find that you've got 4 collections, I think now? Are they doing nicely?
I think we just released our 12th.
Oh my gosh. I'm so off. I apologize.
Okay.
12 collections. Wow. That's incredible.
13th, Lucky 13 is actually a Halloween inspired line. I just realized that.
That's good. So 12 collections under your belt. So you've got a fair amount of experience now. So tell me about how this all came about. I've always loved pattern design, and, I think in retrospect, I realized that I was missing out on a little bit more of the creative process. In the beginning, when we started our shop, I did take more time to sew and as you said, to blog and to share about the projects I was working on. And lately, my projects, they've become very sporadic, with long stretches in between sometimes, or more likely they'd turn into sewing projects that I do with my daughter, who is 8 and absolutely loves to sew. So, which is all well and good, of course. She's going to far surpass my own skills pretty quickly, I think. So I hadn't been doing too much sewing that was for me. They'd turn into projects that I would do with her. So that would definitely change the direction of the project. And it's like all those things in our business, it just came about after a late night talking with Charlie, and we decided we were going to try it. And I have an in-house graphic designer that works with me, and the concepts are mine, and the coloring is mine, and then I have one other girl that helps me with that as well. But I really like the idea of telling a story, and just from beginning to end, the creative process of it, all down to naming the colors and naming the prints, to really make something that's this cohesive unit, then that of course people are going to just go ahead and break up and pull apart and make something entirely new out of it, which is even better actually. But it's been just really fun from the creative aspect. From the printing aspect, it's been quite a learning experience, I will say, and that has been Charlie's aspect of it. So I have more of the fun part of designing, which has worked fabulously. It's been a lot of fun, and there's been really no hiccups in that. And in fact, some people have remarked to us that our collections look a bit different than traditional screen printed methods, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Like everything else, we came into this extremely naive and didn't know how things were done in the past. So just having different ways of doing things, or not knowing how things were done in the past, I think has opened up our creativity to just trying it in different ways, because we didn't know you could do it any other way. Yeah. So give me an example of sort of the naivety working in your favor, like a time when you were like, oh, we just did it this way. And then it turned out later, you're like, oh, wait, you were supposed to do something entirely different.
Well, like how people will put patterns into repeat. There's very traditional methods, which are actually driven by the limitations of the screen printing process. They're limited to a certain size, and we could have a repeat really that's, as long as the roll of the fabric if we really wanted to, just because the methodology of printing out is just different than the traditional screen. Like you can only have a repeat as big as your screen, which is generally a 24-inch repeat is pretty much as big as you can get it. So if you're not limited to those constraints, or whether you're doing, I don't even know what the names of all of them are, like a half drop repeat or or anything like that, if you don't have those limitations from the get-go, you just have complete freedom of how you're going to put your different motifs in different places, and you can really often not even see a pattern because the repeat is so large.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. And did you, so the printer itself, did you have to order this? Like, I know that at Spoonflower, the ones that they have that sound like the one that's similar to the one that you have, they ordered from Korea. Is that where yours came from?
I believe so.
Okay. All right.
Again, that's a question for Charlie.
That was Charlie's. Okay, cool.
Definitely overseas.
Okay, definitely overseas. And in the beginning, I mean, were there some struggles with it? I mean, sort of a learning process as far as not the fabric design itself, but the actual physical, aspect of printing and getting things to be color fast and, all of that stuff.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it is not something for the faint of heart.
That's what I hear.
Like many business endeavors, not so much the color fastness, more of what to do when the printer is not working, essentially.
Right.
Which almost seems to happen if you sneeze on it.
Yes, that's what I hear about those.
They're very finicky machines. So if something is off a half a millimeter, you could get blurring or head strikes, when the print head actually touches the fabric, and then of course you can't send that to a customer. So there are a lot of things that can go wrong in less than perfect conditions. So
yeah.
We've learned quite a lot about the printer, taking it apart and putting it back together ourselves, and I feel like we know it pretty well now.
Yeah, and I feel like, does your printer have a name? I feel like when you have that intimate relationship with the machine, sometimes you end up naming it.
Yes, actually. Well, it came with the name Diva, and she did quite live up to her name. But when we got the second, Diva 1 and Diva 2 didn't quite roll off the tongue. So I think my husband named them. I think we're picking city names for whatever reason, alphabetically. So Amsterdam and then Barcelona. They're probably all going to be soccer names because my son is a huge international soccer fan.
And it sounds like you've got plans for more printers. So that's exciting. Yeah. Good. That's so cool. And are customers digging it? I mean, are they like, cool, like this is super exclusive, fabric that only Hawthorne Threads has? Like you're not, producing for other shops or, it's not available elsewhere.
Yes, definitely. It does have a different look, and I think people like, there's another level of hand-drawn detail that you can achieve in digital printing, and we've really taken advantage of that. I mean, a lot of people talk about color being the large advantage to digital printing because you're not limited to a number of colors. You could put 100 colors in there if you really want. Whereas overseas in screen printing, you're limited to more of a handful of colors. But that's not something we really tackled. It was more the fine detail. So unfortunately, technology hasn't quite caught up to speed for right now. So we can only print, so many yards an hour to get that fine level of detail. There are printers out there on the market that can print 100 to over 100 yards an hour, but you would have to sacrifice that fine detail. Mm-hmm. So actually, we're holding off on buying those very expensive, very fast printers, just because we don't want to sacrifice that. So we're waiting and hoping that technology will catch up sooner rather than later, which generally is the case.
Yeah, I hope it does too. I think that's it's such an exciting area for growth. And I mean, I don't know if I don't know of any other fabrics shops that are also digitally designing and printing their own fabrics. I mean, I think it's maybe they're out there and I don't know about them, but I think it's pretty rare. Or quilt shops or just, a shop that sells fabric from, the bigger manufacturers, but it's also designing their own.
I don't know of any actually, that's also designing in-house.
Yeah,
that's definitely different.
It sets you apart, and it's a a specialty item that people have to come to you for and can get excited about the business with you, right along with you. So I think that's really interesting. And I just want to talk about you a little bit on more of a personal note. So you grew up in a family of 4 girls.
I did.
It sounds like you had a pretty creative mom. And then when you were in college, you were a geology major, which actually my husband, who's also named Charlie, was also a geology major. He was also a geology major in college and is doing nothing geology related. But I just wondered if you always sort of, thought of yourself like, hey, I'm going to grow up and be an entrepreneur or be in a creative field, or was this really a surprise for you?
A complete shock. It's not something I ever would have thought out. I think my husband has more of a mind for business, but he never would have thought out anything creative like this. So it was definitely a meeting of opposite ends of the spectrum to make it work. But no, I had every intention of going to grad school and pursuing more of an academic life. It's been surprising and fun and more challenging than I ever thought I would be able to challenge myself. I think we've realized that fortunately or unfortunately, we thrive on these challenges. We've never sort of sat on our laurels. We've just we're always looking ahead, what to do next. It's been a lot of work, but also a lot of fun.
Can you recall, and I swear this is my last question, can you recall a time, I'm just wondering if you can recall a time that was like one of those particularly sweaty moments, when you were like, I don't know, maybe had a ton of orders backed up and no way to meet them, or the printer was not working, or, just one of those moments where that stands out to you being like, that was a crisis time right there.
Yeah, there's a few that stand out, but one would definitely be right before we moved out of our house in Albany into the chocolate factory. My husband and kids were away in Maine for a wedding that I didn't go to because somebody had to man the Etsy shop. And so I was left home actually with all of the orders and the conversations and all that from Etsy, and my in-laws' dog, 2 dogs, and my own dog. And I just remember cutting all day long. And then my in-laws' dogs, they were male dogs, and they decided that they liked marking their territory on the bolts of fabric.
Oh, my God.
And it happened to be an extremely busy weekend. It was July 4th weekend, which we anticipated would be slow for sales. But it happened to be, I don't know why, we still don't know why, but one of our busiest weekends at that time to date. So I was just drowning in orders. And I think I eventually wound up in the emergency room, to be honest.
Oh, my gosh.
Exhaustion and probably too much caffeine, a little dehydration.
Yeah. All right. But, you made it through, right? Here we are on the other side with this beautiful website and a staff of 30. It's funny to look back and think about all that went into building it. But I think it's really helpful to people to hear about that, because it looks so polished now and it looks so seamless. And, and things like that, they don't just drop from the sky. There was a process, a long process, and a lot of equity and sweat equity that went into it. So I think it's important for people to hear, that there were hard times.
Yeah. I mean, and it doesn't, like anything else, it doesn't look that polished in the shop. Sometimes it's nice to take that veil away for people who think that everything has to be perfect. You're only seeing what's in the frame of that photo, even if there's chaos and, fabric scraps flying all over the place behind that. But the important thing is we really set out to create a space that we liked going to work every day, and to do that, it's really great for our staff, because it's just always been at the forefront to create a space you want to be in every day and work with people that you like. So we've worked hard at creating this community atmosphere in our shop, and it's been a fun place to work.
Yeah. So what's next? I think you said that you have a Halloween collection number 13, getting ready to print. And what else can we look forward to sort of coming into the fall from Hawthorne Threads?
Well, the Halloween line is called Bewitched, and it's actually, it's basically our Calliope collection. That was one of our first ones. The muse, Greek muse of inspiration. She's been bewitched, basically. So we've turned a lot of the prints from there into a Halloween theme. So it's been a lot of fun to do that, actually. And then the next one we're working on right now, I don't think we've had any sneak peeks at all on Instagram, but it's going to be called Rome, and it's centered around this really awesome bison, which didn't exactly come off as the greatest name for the collection, so it's kind of where the buffalo roam.
I get it. Okay. Got it. Okay.
It's a kind of a Western themed, but not in the tacky sense, collection that we're really excited to work on next.
All right. That's super. And you'll be at Quilt Market in the fall?
We will.
All right. Okay, cool.
Really, a couple of our staff members come with us, so yeah, we'll definitely be there.
Super. And so I want to make sure we get to some of your recommendations because you had a few really good ones. So we're going to start with the first one, which is Uppercase Magazine, of which I'm a huge fan as well.
I'm not surprised.
I love it.
Actually, Nikki, the owner of Wyndham Fabrics, turned me on to this magazine, so I can't take the credit. He sent it, I think he just sent me a copy, actually, knowing that I would enjoy it, and he was totally right. For anybody that doesn't know the magazine or hasn't come across it, it's just this really beautiful compendium of artwork, of really all kinds of shapes and forms. From one magazine that might be talking about typography or color theory, sometimes really esoteric things like, I think recently there was oil paintings of antique spoons. And then I think one of the earlier magazines was talking about the invention of the screw. Like just all kinds of things that you might never use in your everyday life, but it's displayed in a beautiful way that just you can't help but be inspired, and it's a really nice thing to just sit down and have a cup of coffee with.
Yeah, and these are magazines that you're going to save. You're not going to pop this in the recycling when the new issue comes, like I do with some of my other magazines. I have my Uppercase magazines on my shelf in order, and so I love them, and they smell good too. I will mention. Am I right?
I managed to do that.
They do smell good.
You're right.
Right? Like you get it, and there's like this Uppercase smell. I don't know. It must be the ink or something, because it does smell good. Okay, so that's a good one. And Janine she's the editor, and she's wonderful as well. Okay, so I want to talk about something else you wanted to recommend, which is quilting over topographic maps. This sounds like a throwback to your geology training.
Yeah, I think pretty literally I've just come full circle. I bought one of those typographic maps that was on a handkerchief a few years ago in Rocky Mountain National Park. I was there with my father, so I bought two. I figured I would maybe make something for him and myself out of it. And just recently had gotten around to it because my dad actually had a birthday, and he just closed on a new cabin pretty near to us where we live yesterday. So it was kind of a birthday housewarming gift. So I used it's a square handkerchief, and it's the topographic map of Rocky Mountain National Park. And I made it into a patchwork pillow. I just did like a simple log cabin patchwork design around it, and then added some tassels. But the really fun part was quilting over the trail that we were on in the park. Just as a really nice memento, and I definitely see a lot more of those in my future. I have another scarf that I bought in Death Valley, and that was the line that actually inspired our Coyote collection. So now I can really come full circle there and use our Coyote fabrics in a pillow or a quilt or a wall hanging with the Death Valley topographic map. So
yeah, I recommend
it.
Yeah, that's such a neat idea and a neat way to keep and use those souvenirs that you're buying on these travels and actually have them out on the couch, where everybody can see them and use them all the time.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's done this before, but I posted on Instagram a couple days ago, and there was a really great response, because everybody at one time or another finds themselves at a national park, hopefully. So I think it resonates with a lot of people and their childhood memories or the memories that they're making with their own children. So it's a really nice memento to make and keep.
Yeah, that's lovely. Okay, and you have one final one, which is window shopping for weavings online. And I think if I'm right about what you mean by that, I think I do the same thing, because weaving has just totally come back, and it's amazing. And I've never done it, but I just watch it and see these beautiful weavings. And I follow a bunch of weavers now on Instagram because it's just so fun. So tell me a little bit about that.
They're just gorgeous. I mean, I've looked to them a lot recently for just color and texture inspiration, and I've bought a couple of them, and I tell myself I'm not allowed to buy anymore because I need to learn how to make them. It just looks like a whole lot of fun, and we have some big spaces on our walls that are just calling for one of those, and it's a fun way to play with color, in just a different art form, and I think
texture too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of them, they have sort of loose yarns, in bunches kind of coming off of them in the middle or in the bottom, and it's just so textural as well as colorful and abstract. It's super abstract, so which I love. And it is kind of, it's like this throwback to the 70s, but it's really back again, and it's super mod now.
Yeah, I mean, I could see my daughter getting into it with me as well, just because, as you say, you can touch it and feel it, and that lends itself really well to kids' activities. I definitely see her wanting to make some simple weavings, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. Well, Lindsay, it's been great talking with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the While She Naps podcast.
Oh, thank you. It was very nice to meet you, Abby.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. And you've been listening to the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg, and I invite you to visit my blog, whileshenaps.com, where you'll find helpful information for creative entrepreneurs, as well as tutorials and patterns for making stuffed animals and dolls. And if you enjoy this show, tell a friend about it. Thank you so much to Porter and Hazel for sponsoring the podcast today. Porter and Hazel want you to know that words are all around us. We use them casually all the time. But words have meaning. They move and shape and inspire and motivate us and remind us of who we are and who we're trying to become. These are the words we keep close, that we wrap ourselves in. Let Porter and Hazel transform your words into something you can hold and keep with you always. Porter and Hazel, wear your heart on your wrist. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.